So recently I was teaching a student about the modes of the major scale and how to use them. And I was going through the Ionian mode is C to C, all white keys. The second mode of the major scale, the Dorian mode, D to D on the white keys. The third, the Phrygian, E to E. And we were talking about all the seventh chords you can build. And then they were like, well, wait, aren't you just playing the C major scale starting at different places? And I was like, yeah, that's what I said. And then they were like, yeah. And I was like, And I realized right then and there that they were going to have an amazing day because they didn't fully understand how improvisers use the modes of the major scale and things like diatonic seventh chords, the seventh chords built off of those modes, and their secondary dominants to answer a very common question. What scale do I play on this chord? Now, I'm not even sure if this is the right question. It might be better to ask, what scale is this chord built from? Generally, chords are built from scales. We have a chunk of time in a song, and there's a bit of melody, there's a root movement, and the harmony is built from our scale choices. Now, some people have a real aversion to even thinking like this. They still choose notes over groups of times. I hate to spoil it for you, but you're still choosing a scale to play over a group of time. You just don't want to call it that. You want to call that just Andy's group of notes, not to burst your bubble. So I love talking about this stuff because it can be very, very enlightening when it comes to building chords and improvising melodies. It gives us our sonic color palette, which is what we're all about here at Open Studio. Now, before we get too far into it, this video is sponsored by Open Studio Jazz. Go to openstudiojazz.com to go on a deeper dive on all of this. You might even check the description for a deal. A lot of this stuff is based off my Jazz Scales for Beginners course. You can check that course out. I think you'd dig it. Before we jump into what scale to play on what chord, I just want to talk about 3 rules for today's session. There are more guidelines than rules, really. But the first rule is this. Rule number 1, know your diatonic seventh chords. Now, if you don't know how to use the modes of the major scale and diatonic seventh chords and things like secondary dominants, I am so stoked for you today. I'm so excited because a lot of questions are going to be answered. I feel like this has the potential to lift the veil on a lot of mystery about how to choose the notes when you're looking at things like a lead sheet. Now, we first have to learn our diatonic seventh chords. You can literally do this in whatever key the tune you're playing is. It's a great way to get started with answering that fundamental question of what scale do I play over this chord. Let's have a look at our diatonic seventh chords in the key of C major. So diatonic seventh chords in the key of C major, it's literally building seventh chords by skipping a note going up the C major scale, or all the white keys, right? So we have our C major 7, and then the second mode, the Dorian mode, makes a D minor 7. The third mode, which is the Phrygian mode, makes an E minor 7. The fourth mode is an F major 7. The fifth mode, that's the Lydian, by the way. The fifth mode is the G7, the Mixolydian. The sixth mode is the Aeolian, the A minor 7. And the seventh mode is the Locrian, the B half diminished, or B minor 7 flat 5. Why even learn these like this? Well, because if you're in the key of C and you see an A minor, do you play a Dorian? You don't have to. In fact, it shouldn't be your first choice. If you're in the key of C and you see an A minor, you should try to play an Aeolian. It sounds so much better, usually. Not all the time, but usually. By the way, all of this stuff, caveats, exceptions. But in general, if you're in the key of C and you see an A minor, don't play a Dorian. That's from the key of G. Stay with the key of C. Stay grounded, right, in our diatonic sevenths. If you're in the key of C and you see an E minor 7, are you going to play a Dorian? I know a lot of people do. Try a Phrygian. It's so sweet. It's in that key. It's, remember, it's the, isn't that just the C major scale, E to E? Yeah, that's what I said. That's why it's awesome. So why is that important? Why is it important? I mean, you could play Dorian on whatever you wanted. You could change whatever chord you want. F major 7, try a Lydian with the B natural, right? Try to stay in the diatonic C majorness of these chords that are built from the C major scale. Let's take a look at playing these diatonic seventh chords, trying to hear them in the key of C major. I have some very simple piano voicings here. So play this with me. Here's our C major 7. Now I'm playing a major 9 chord, but I want to reiterate that if you, say on a lead sheet C, a major 7, you have license to play pretty much anything in that C major scale as long as it's a C major sound, right? So the 9 sounds great there. Now the 2, right? D minor 7, that Dorian. Now notice that's not a Phrygian. It doesn't have a flat 2, right? It's a Dorian sound. We're just moving everything up in white keys. The Phrygian, this we're not going to do the 9 because it creates a little minor 9 rub there, so I'm just going to double the 3rd. Nothing illegal about that. Jazz Police can't get me for that, I don't think. The 4th is the F major 7, right? The Lydian mode. Now there's a B natural in this scale, so keep that in mind. If you wanted to go sharp 11, you could. The 5th, G7. Again, I'm playing a 9 voicing here because it's part of the scale. Isn't that just C major from G to G? That's what's so great about it. When I see it in the key of C, I know it's just G to G, all white keys. The 6th mode, A minor 7, is the diatonic 7th chord. Again, I'm playing a 9th voicing, just adding more extensions. And the 7th is that Locrian again, the minor 7 flat 5, or half diminished either way. And then back up to the C major 7. Isn't that great? They sound great. Play it again with me. Beautiful. Again, so if we're playing a tune in the key of C major and I see a C major, I'm going to assume it's Ionian. If I see an A minor 7, I'm going to assume level 1 that it's Aeolian. Of course, exceptions, whatever. If I see a B minor 7 flat 5, I'm going to assume it's Locrian, and I'm going to use the Locrian scale to build the chords and to build my improvisation from. That's how that works. Why is this important? Why do we need to know this? Well, when I'm looking at a lead sheet, say of Time After Time, this is what's going on in my brain when I first see it. That's just all C major. This is Time After Time, right? And so here we have the changes to Time After Time. All I'm seeing here through the first, what is that, 7 bars? Is chords built off of the C major scale. When I improvise, that's going to be my home base. Now, of course, I can alter whatever I wanted to alter here on any of the dominants or really any of the chords, but step 1, level 1, is all of the diatonicness, the C majorness, right? So here, if I have this A minor 7 in the 3rd beat, I'm thinking Aeolian. The D minor 7, I know that's Dorian. We're in the key of C major. We're in a cadence to C major. That's a Dorian chord. That's a 2 chord. That's a 5 chord. Back to the 1. A natural 6 chord. Right? A Dorian, a G7. Back to the 2 chord. Even when we get to the B minor 7, that's Locrian. No reason to go natural 2 there. Locrian's a beautiful scale. Now hang on a minute. After that B minor 7 flat 5, what is that? Yeah, that E7 there. That's not in the key of C major. That's not a diatonic 7th chord. What is that? It brings us to rule number 2. Rule number 2, know your secondary dominants. When we're talking about our diatonic 7th chord, each one of those diatonic 7th chords has its own dominant. Let's dig into this a little bit. So here we are back at our diatonic 7th chords, right? Just all the 7th chords that you can make in C major, all the way up. Each one of these has a dominant chord. In other words, it has a dominant 7th chord that has a root, a 4th below, or a 5th above. So our C major 7, it has a natural dominant of G7, but everything else is a secondary dominant. It's not in the diatonic scale because there's only one dominant chord in the major scale, and that's G7. So check this out. So of course, C major has G7. D minor has a secondary dominant, and it's A7. Right? A 4th below in the root, and it's a dominant 7 chord. These are like the next level of chords that you see in Great American Songbook Standards and Jazz Standards. But these secondary dominants, they really help to support the diatonic 7th chord. So we have our 7th chords that are based off of the scale of the key that we're in, and then we have these secondary dominants that carve a path to those destination chords, right? Our B7 to E minor, right? C7 to our 4 chord. F major. That's right, C7 in the key of C, that's a secondary dominant going to F, right? D7 to G. E7 is the secondary dominant. You can see the root movement here, right? F sharp 7 to our B half diminished, right? So it's adding a 5 chord to each one of the diatonic 7th chords. And knowing these can help you to recognize them when you're learning tunes. Oh, like, oh, that's just a secondary dominant going to the 3 chord, or that's just a secondary dominant going to the 6. It can be game-changing. Just that information alone, diatonic 7th chords and their secondary dominants can get you through like 80% of, I swear, 80% of Great American Songbook standards. So let's take a look at a little exercise where we can add to our diatonic 7th chords with their secondary dominants. Check it out. So here we have the same diatonic 7th chords and their secondary dominants. Wait, hold on. What is that? Are you noticing something here? That A7 has a flat 9, flat 13 going to D minor. That B7 has a flat 9, flat 13. I guess we're just doing flat 9, flat 13s. Wait, but the C7 doesn't. This brings us to rule number 3. A 5-1 to a major, we're going to use a mixolydian. A 5-1 to a minor, we're going to use a Phrygian dominant sound. Now, a Phrygian dominant is such an interesting scale. This is a sound you hear a lot, but you might not know what it is. So check this out. So here, going to a major, we're going to use the C mixolydian as if we're going to F, right? We are going to F. Those are our voicings there, right? Just an unaltered dominant. I have a 9 in the voicing again, a 9 in the voicing here. But that is the first, part of that rule. The second part is when we're going to a minor target, we can use the Phrygian dominant scale to improvise with and to build the voicing with. So here we're going to the 6th chord in the key of C, A minor, right? We can use for that E7, which is A minor's secondary dominant, we can use the E Phrygian dominant. Now, the mixolydian here, the C mixolydian, that's the 5th mode of its target, right? The 5th mode of F major. It's just the F major scale starting on a C. The E Phrygian dominant is the 5th mode of the A harmonic minor. So it's the 5th mode of the harmonic minor of its target of A, right? We don't have to be going to A harmonic minor when we land on the minor. We can still land on Aeolian, or if we're going to D in the key of C, we can still land on Dorian. But for the dominant chord, we use its target harmonic minor, the 5th mode of that target's harmonic minor, also called the If Phrygian dominant. It's a lot of words I'm throwing at you, but you can see here how beautiful that scale is, right? So with that rule, there are 4 chords in our diatonic 7th chords that have minor thirds, the 2, the 3, the 6, and the 7. Let's look at that again and notice the Phrygian dominant voicings, right? Check this out. Flat 9, flat 13, right? E7, here's our root, 7, 3, flat 13, flat 9, going to our A minor 7. It just is darker, right? It sounds more minor, and it has that weight that brings it down to the minor. If you just played mixolydian, which you can totally do, nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong, but this is more common in at least a modern context. You hear that Phrygian dominant sound, that flat 13, flat 9 sound going to the minor. And then you hear as like level 1, again, level 1, you hear just like a mixolydian going to the major chord. Let's check out this exercise so you can hear it for yourself, because yeah. So let's play through this so you can hear this. This is going to change some stuff for you. Right? Look at where the arrows are pointing. That A7 is connected to its tonic, D minor 7. Right? Secondary dominant to its tonic. B7, where are we going? We're going to E minor? Oh, then we're going to need a flat 9, flat 13 from the Phrygian dominant. Not the Phrygian scale, by the way. Phrygian dominant, right? That 5th mode of its target. In this case, the 5th mode of E minor. So B7, flat 9, flat 13 to E minor. Now, next we're going up to the 4, right? We're going to F major 7, so we're going to need an unaltered mixolydian dominant, C7. Next we're going to the 5 chord, right? G7, that has a major third, so the unaltered D7. Again, using a 9-13 voicing here, just for color, but based off of the D mixolydian scale. And then E7, we're going to a minor chord, so we need that flat 9, flat 13 from the Phrygian dominant. We already know this. We've already played that. And then our F sharp 7, flat 9, flat 13. Because, again, B minor, right? It's got the minor third, so we're going to use that Phrygian dominant. That's a B harmonic minor starting on the 5th, F sharp, to the B minor 7, flat 5, and then our G7 unaltered back to there. So when you see a lead sheet, again, like time after time, and you see here the B minor 7 to an E7 flat 9 to an A minor 7, right? That A minor 7, right? That's the diatonic 6th chord in the key of C. That E7 is its secondary dominant, and lo and behold, what sounds absolutely beautiful? The flat 9, flat 13 sound. Listen to the difference between this Mixolydian and the flat 9, flat 13. Here's our B minor 7, flat 5. That's the sound, right? That's the sound we get heading to a minor. One more thing here. A lot of tunes don't have diatonic 7th chords or their secondary dominants. There might be chords that are completely out of the key that we're in. How High the Moon is a great example of these minor modulations that a lot of Great American Songbook standards and jazz standards and bossa nova tunes have within them. So, of course, the tune starts out on the tonic, but right in bar 3, now we're in a G minor, right? Now, it's not a G minor out of nowhere, right? It's not from the key of B flat, is it? Is it from the key of E flat? Maybe it's a Phrygian from E flat. No, we need to see where it's heading. So after the G minor is a C7, and we finally land on an F. So we know that G minor is part of the key of F, right? That's where that cadence is going to the key of F, the tonic of F. So it's a 2 chord. It's Dorian, right? The C7, Mixolydian, right? Why? Because it's a dominant chord heading to, say it with me, a major chord. Then right after we, resolve to the F major, goes to an F minor. It really does the exact same thing. Now, as soon as we're on this F minor, key of E flat. As soon as we're on that A minor at the end there, that last bar, we're heading back to the key of G. Again, caveat, exceptions. In this very tune, the chord after that is a G minor. And you know what that feels like? It feels like a bit of a fake out, doesn't it? It feels a bit surprising, which is how you can use these things once you artfully know how to do it. But it's very helpful to know sort of the tropes before you break those tropes. So here we have, the first 3 bars, including the pickup, all G major scale as level 1, right? I mean, of course, you could do Lydian or whatever you wanted to do, but like level 1 option is G major. And as soon as we hit the G minor, now we're in the key of F major. Right? That's how we're thinking of it. 2-5 to F major. Now, we're in the key of G the whole time, but the cadence is in the key of F major. And those 4 bars that I have there in that second stanza, you could play just all F major scale from G to G, C to C, F to F. Like that's the color palette that we have there. Apparently it's kind of red. And then when we get to the third line down there, the F minor 7, now we're in the key of E flat for this cadence, right? We're borrowing the key of E flat. Again, for those 3 bars, F minor 7, B flat 7, that's a 2-5-1 in E flat. That's Dorian, Mixolydian, and Ionian. That's all E flat major options. It's game changing. You don't have to think about each individual chord. There's 3 colors on that sheet right there. You know what I mean? Like, that takes care of a lot. Now, from there, we can start to add tension and alter our dominance and do some diminished fake outs on the major chords. It gets really rich after this. But knowing this can help us to get to that next level where we can really start to make art out of this. And I'm so excited if this is your first time understanding that we group these things together in these modes, right? The modes of C major, the modes, in the case of How High the Moon, the modes of G, and then the modes of F, and the modes of E flat. They're all the same color palette. We're switching at that point, and knowing what the context is, knowing where it's heading, and why we choose those color palette of notes for each one of those chords can be so great, so simplifying. It's excellent. So, whew, worked up. I could honestly talk about that kind of stuff for like 8 hours straight. So I'll do a follow-up on this because there's some other little things like backdoor 2/5s and Lydian dominance and flat 3 diminished 7th chords that are super common and fun to know about because, again, all of these tunes that we know, they're the nuts and bolts of those tunes. It's how they're built. And so understanding how they work can be sick. All right, everybody. Until next time, happy practicing.